Man, don't tell me this is our third lesson and you didn't tell me. What's going on here? Hello internet, hello bass enthusiast, hello bass ladies and bass gentlemen. Who knows what today's lesson is all about? Maybe there's a little hint. Maybe now, or maybe even now. Maybe now it would be a better hint. No, I know. Maybe I should add more hints. And more hints. And more hints. And more hints. And more hints. Man, if you could see what's going on here. Let me put this thing down a little bit. Let me put this thing down. Man, it's so nice to see you. I really missed you. I really missed. This is a mountain of strings over here. Man, you have no idea what's going on here. Let me put you back up where you belong. And it's really nice to see you for another lesson. And today's video is sponsored by Pyramid Strings. Man, I have to tell you guys that this guy is one guy in Germany, have his own manufacturer for strings. He can make strings for anything. This guy is amazing. This guy is really amazing. He can make strings custom made for any string instrument that exists today in this century, and custom made for your basses as well. This guy saved my ass more than one time in recordings, because you know, in USA you got Callium, and here in Germany we have Pyramid. Yes, Pyramid is a really high quality brand, and I really recommend Pyramid strings to all of you. So let's get into our lesson, because I'm really waiting for this. To be honest with you, it's been a long time since I haven't uploaded a video. So let's get into it. Yo, that would really help me a lot if you guys subscribe over there in the button and press like over there in the button over there, and like, and maybe even tell me what you think and what you don't think, and that would be really awesome. Let's continue with our video. When it comes to bass, if there is no strings attached, there is no sound. No matter how great your bass may be, if it's a custom-made, handmade, it's only a chunk of wood in the end of the day if it doesn't have strings on it. Throw strings on it though, and suddenly it springs to life, huh? From chunk of wood of nothing to 100% something. Look at this. Okay, this is the string. It's covered with another kind of metal, and then you have the core. The core can be chosen, and also the wound around it. There is all kinds of metal that you can choose. If it's from stainless steel into nickel plated metal, into brass, all you need is there. Even the core. Some strings offered you a choice of nylon inside. Some of them even have other compounds and other coatings, like exist in the market. Some strings that have special coating to make it less rough on your fingers to play when it comes in contact with them, which is really interesting. You should all research about that, to be honest. There is some silicone coatings, and there are other coatings that are more focused around preserving the sound of the new strings, which can be really useful in the end of the day. The vibration of your hands creates, when they touch, those strings resonate through the entire bass, the body, the neck, the tuners, the nut, the wire, the bridge, the pickups, and other electronics, helping to create this unique audio signal for your amp. To reproduce, strings that you choose matter a great deal on your performance, on your music, on everything. On the total 100% of everything you do is affected by the strings, by the core. So the strings you choose matter a great deal. Just like basses, strings come from many different varieties. From string construction isn't, to be honest, a popular topic at parties. So this is why today we're gonna speak everything, all about it. There is no I don't know. Not with me. Not when I'm making these lessons, okay? So now you're gonna know everything. Today we are going to speak about everything that you need to know about strings. Everything. It's just a wire after all, wrapped in another wire or some other material, but ask any string manufacturer or any decent player and you hear passionate explanation about how the material choices of construction approaches dramatically the way your strings sound and feels under your fingers. And to be fair, it matters a lot. Here's what you need to know to choose the right string for you. For example, let's start with the first topic, okay? I made some remarks so it will be more easy for me to go through the lesson. So let's start. So the first topic, winding. Okay, The type of winding is probably the most important string decision you can make because it has the most impact on the sound of the bass that you play and how you play it. So listen good guys, the winding refers to the material wrapped around the string core. It's the surface that basically your finger touch and the surface that comes in contact with your fingers, with the frets, with the fretboards. Bass strings are available in 4 types of winding, to be honest with you. Flatwood, tapewood, roundwood, and halfwood, okay? Let's start go through each one of them so you can know what's their and you will know how to recognize them. And let's go with it. So flat wounds were essentially the only choice in town bass strings until the 1960s. So they are associated with the classic round mellow bass sound common to jazz and vintage rock. Their flat winding feels smooth on your fingertip, to be honest, easy on your frets, and don't eat up your fingerboard the way other type of strings can. Then you have the next one, which is also really nice, tapewood. Strings are even silkier to the touch than the flatwood. Thanks to the nylon layer wrapped around the steel core, they are tend to be dark sounding, to be honest. They are really interesting also. On some basses, even boarding on dual and tampi. So it's like really and it's really interesting. The delivery tonality that most keen of what you might expect to hear from an upright bass, which is not bad for a tape one, huh? So that could be really nice to experiment when you're recording something in this kind of genre. And my personal favorite, round woods, are the most popular winding type in use today. These strings are typically wrapped in stainless steel or nickel. I want to tell you that there is a big difference. I would recommend you to go for stainless steel. They are more brighter and have more life and more sparkle more. The nickel as well, but sometimes it can be a little bit swallow your playing and be a bit dull, but that's a matter of smell and taste. Who can argue on that? So let's continue. And they're renewed of their they are being known for their piano bright and sizzle. Also the harshness on your fingertips and frets and fretboards a little bit. But if you are into rock, pop, or funk, they deliver hallmark sounds that is really hard to beat. Really, anything you place, it's comfortable. It's a bit harsh in the sound and the touch, but it's there. That's what's quite popular in the last centuries that the player used. But it's all a matter of taste. What you want to simulate, what is your favorite artist, what do you want to produce. So this is things that you need to think about. The next string that we're going to speak about is half rounds, are essentially round woods that are ground to somewhere a flattened surface, which result in less string noise, while also extend the life and span of your frets. Hells aren't the brightest sounds as round woods, but they are bright than flat woods and tape woods. Personally, I love the warmth of the bass strung of the round wood, but I am equally in love with the sizzle of the round woods. If you are not sure what's right for you guys, think about a player sound that you would really like to be close to and emulate. Then just find out in Google what strings they use and consider what will suit you. The string length is also a matter that you should really consider. Like some strings are shorter. If you have a long scale bass, you better make sure that it says long scale strings size and length, so you don't get something shorter for your instrument, and then you would be really pissed off, especially if it's before a concert and stuff like that. So make sure in the package that it says the right size for you. Also, we're going to speak about the size, because for example, when you go thinner strings, it's going to be easier for you to play faster, dexterity, more strength. When it's going to be fatter string, it's going to be harder for you to press. The lighter strings are faster to play, easier to play faster, but the problem is they get out of tune faster compared to the thick ones that stay in tune, but don't go over thick. You can just get the standard and try both. Just see what suits for you, to be honest. Nickel, you should try it. Stainless steel, make sure what material the strings before you order them, because then you get recordings, you order by mistake some brand of strings that's or a concert and you get really pissed off after. So really make sure what you order, what you buy, read the package, read the small letters. and everything should be okay. Next thing, wrap material. While the type of wrap is the most important factor when it comes to strings, the wrap material also provide unique characteristics of the color, resulting tone effect on how the strings feel under your fingers and contribute to how long they last, to be honest. There are a number of different wrap materials commonly used for bass players. My personal favorite, stainless steel, is the brightest sounding material available, and it lasts the longest as well. Nickel plated steel is bright sounding as well, but um, it isn't harsh on the hands and frets, so it's like more smoother a bit, more silkier feeling. Copper plated steel is very bright and commonly used on acoustic electric basses. Pure nickel is duller sound, is the less magnetic material as well, with more vintage tones suitable, if you know what I mean. If you make more things for vintage, you wanna sound more traditional, so pure nickel is definitely for you. Manufacturers sometimes supply protective coating, like I said before, to help the string resist corrosion or to give them a longer lifespan, or just to be aware that the type of coating you use can be also color the sound of the strings. So make sure that there is no funky coating over your strings, and pay attention to that, because that can affect your playing. And if you are planning recording or something like that, make sure what you're gonna use. Yeah. Another thing, what I mentioned before with the string gauge, this is the number refers to diameter or thickness of each strings. A set of strings is identified by the gauge of lowest strings in the set. For example, a high G string will normally be 45 gauge string. The thick string in the 4-string model is 105 gauge, which is like the standard, in a set. 105 E, low E, into high G, 45. While the 5th string for a 5-string model normally is 130 in standard low B, to be honest, or whatever normal means to you. Whatever music genre you created, experiment, whatever, and create what is best for you, and flow with it, because it can complement in the end or maybe make it worse. So use it in closed room, before you go wild and say sorry after. Comparably speaking, heavy gauge string sounds meatier, less slinky, less ping pow, The lighter gauge ones, they make a good match for aggressive players who really attack their instrument when they play. Like if you play stand again, if you're into the genty benty, if you're into the if you're into stuff like that, then it's definitely for you. However, the heavier gauge, the more tension the string will require to tune to be to, it's like will be the more heavier the gauge, the more it's like more stronger it will be stretched, and you will have to tune them to pitch, really like stretch them. So, but it's not a big deal, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's confusing. You think you're over the note, or past it, or you're confused and you don't know that where you are already. So sometimes I just reopen them completely and start again, just to make sure not to pop up the string. The more tension you add to the string, the harder it becomes to press down on a fret. So you all need good finger strength. In addition, thicker strings require wider slots in the nuts and the bridge saddles, and also create more tension in the truss rod of the bass and the neck. So you're correctly playing light or medium gauges string. Want to move into heavier gauges one, you likely need to have your bass setup, truss rod, and intonations, because you can destroy basically your basically bridge and nut. The strings is laying on top on, that could be really crap, because it's gonna make your nut be wider or something like that, and you don't want that. By the way, there is other kind of strings. Normally, strings come in this thickness from beginning to an end, yeah. But there is another kind of string that is starting immediately with the core, and then it's going into thicker, which is something you should consider as well sometimes when you go to extremely big thick of bass strings. So you better get the one that have the beginning really like the core, and then it's become the string after. So it's like, doesn't matter how big is the hole in your saddle or your bridge, it's gonna fit. Okay, So you better adjust the action, bring it to a professional guy to adjust it for you when you plan something like that, because it's really better. You know what you do. Don't touch, don't destroy your bass, man. That could be really crap if you start to buzz or something, man. You don't want that. Adjust action, raise the lower. Better to let really qualified pro man do that. Lighter gauge string are much more under your fingers kind of vibe, and they are like can easily bend, deliver more snap and percussive funkiness, but with less fundamental bassiness. To be honest, you can compensate to some degree by turning up the low tone control on your amp, but it still won't sound the same as when you are like with heavier gauge string. It's affecting the sound, to be honest. Another subject that we are gonna speak about is the core shape of the string. Okay, normally it's just like a small core cable. It's like another string inside the string kind of vibe, and then it's wrapped with another string around it. So the core inside, which is just a metal string, can be also a different shape, which is really crazy. You have hexagon shape. You have let's go through that. Okay, you have the core shapes. Okay, the string core wire is usually made from steel. It's come in essentially two different shapes, hex and round. A hex core is, the name implies, is a hexagonal, which gives you the string winding, something to grab into. But because the hex core is like a six-sided shape, has flat surfaces rather than being round, that means that the windings don't constantly touch the core all the way around, which result in a brighter tone, to be honest with you guys. Round core strings, which many players associate with vintage tone, maintain constant contact with the core, helping to create darker and more fundamental sound with less tension required, translating into the string that is like slightly easy to play, but they have a bit, to be honest, they are a bit more tense. I tried it once. It's not for everybody. You need to check them out. Hexagonal core. That's totally in the to-do list for you now. There's a lot to consider here, to be honest. I know long-time players typically find a brand that string that from specific manufacturer that works for them. Pyramid strings. Pyramid strings. You have to check this guy, man. And then they stick with them for years, sometimes even decades. In fact, some bassists will play the same set of strings on their bass for years long. But don't be intimidated. You just got your first bass. The more you play and try out different strings, the sooner you figure out what you like and what you don't like. And one last tip, always remember to buy strings that match the scale length of your bass as measured from the nut to the saddle. This may seem inherently obvious, yeah? But trust me, the first time you slip up and go to put the wrong ones on, you won't be happy anymore if it's not what you want. So open your ears. This was our third lesson. The next lesson, we're gonna dive into music theory and we're gonna get nerd on the bass and get into how everything works in music. So subscribe, support, because this was not easy to make.